Have you ever wondered what happens at the very brink of death? When your heart stops beating and your loved ones are forced to say goodbye. I never gave it much thought until I went through it myself. My name is Evelyn Greene and I'm 68 years old. If you're hearing my story, it's because I was brought back for a reason, one I never asked for, but one I can't ignore. And part of that reason involves a man named Elon Musk, whose work has the power to shape the destiny of everyone on Earth. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I'm not a famous figure or a visionary. I'm a retired librarian from a small Midwestern town who loved reading, knitting, and spending time with my grandchildren. I've never met Elon Musk in my life. Yet here I am, holding a message so urgent that I was literally torn from the afterlife and thrust back into this world. I promise you, if you give me a moment of your time, I'll share what happened in that place beyond life and why it matters to every single one of us. 3 months ago, I lay in a hospital bed, clinging to life. A severe heart condition had worn me down. My doctors had tried everything, medications, surgeries, countless procedures, but at some point, your body has a way of telling you it's done fighting. Late one afternoon, I felt it, a deep exhaustion, too profound to fight anymore. My daughter, Rachel, and my 2 grandsons, Jason and Mike, stood at my bedside. I could sense their fear and grief, even as they tried to be strong for me. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and echoed with the steady beep of monitors. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed softly. I remember looking into Rachel's eyes. She was gripping my hand so hard, as though sheer willpower could keep me tethered to life. I opened my mouth to tell her I loved her, but my voice was so weak it came out as a faint whisper. She squeezed my hand tighter, tears welling up. Jason stood next to her, his sneakers squeaking on the tile as he shifted his weight nervously. Mike leaned against the window, arms folded, head bowed low. I wanted to comfort them, but the words just wouldn't come. I took a shaky breath, and in that moment, it felt like time slowed down. The beeping of the machines faded to a dull hum. My eyes drifted closed of their own accord. I heard Rachel's voice, begging me to hold on, telling me she loved me, and then there was silence. When people talk about dying, they often describe darkness or a tunnel. For me, it was different. I was suddenly immersed in a warm, radiant light that felt alive. There was no sense of fear or pain, just incredible peace, like the softest blanket enveloping me. My body no longer ached. My mind was calm, free of the anxiety that had weighed me down in my final days. It's impossible to describe the colors I saw. They were more vibrant than anything here on Earth, almost pulsating with life. It was as if the very air itself glowed. I felt weightless, like I could drift forever in that endless warmth. I remember thinking, so this is what it feels like to be at peace. But I wasn't floating aimlessly. I sensed a pull, a guiding presence that drew me forward. Before me was a landscape that felt both alien and familiar at the same time. Rolling hills shimmering in a light that defies description, streams glistening as though made of liquid crystal, and distant mountains bathed in a golden glow. Everything seemed to hum with a gentle melody, not from any instrument, but from the essence of this place itself. And then I felt him before I even saw him. A presence so comforting, so profoundly loving, it brought tears to my eyes. I knew immediately it was Jesus. The moment that realization struck me, a wave of pure, overwhelming love washed over me. Any doubt or fear vanished, replaced by the certainty that I was safe. Nothing I'd seen in paintings or statues prepared me for the reality of Jesus. There was no pale, solemn figure staring off into the distance. Instead, he emanated light from within, radiating life and empathy. His eyes, especially, captured me. They reflected every secret, every mistake, every dream I'd ever had. And yet, there was no condemnation, only acceptance and compassion. He spoke my name, and I swear, in that single utterance, I felt more love than I'd felt in my entire lifetime. It wasn't a sound that just passed through my ears. It resonated through me, filling my whole being. "Evelyn," he said, "you are here for a moment, but your journey isn't over." I can still recall how my soul trembled at his words. How could I go back? Why would anyone choose to leave such a perfect realm? I wanted to stay, to rest in that peace and warmth, free from pain and worry. But Jesus continued, I am sending you back. There is a message you must share, one the world needs to hear. I couldn't comprehend it. 100 questions swirled in my mind. I wanted to plead, to say, please don't make me go. But before I could voice a single thought, visions flooded my consciousness. Images so intense that they took my breath away, if that phrase even makes sense in a place where breath wasn't necessary. I saw Earth, floating like a blue gem in the vast darkness of space. It looked so beautiful, so alive. But as I watched, a shadow began creeping across the planet's surface. It wasn't a physical cloud or darkness. It was more like a spiritual haze, fueled by greed, corruption, and a reckless trust in technology we barely understood. Humanity was thriving in some ways, amazing inventions, breakthroughs in science, people able to connect across continents with a single tap on a screen. Yet underneath the hustle and noise, a quiet danger was growing. Our drive to innovate was outpacing our sense of responsibility. And then, as the vision continued, a specific figure took center stage, Elon Musk. This man, someone I'd only ever known as that billionaire who launched rockets and built electric cars, appeared to be a pivotal force in two drastically different futures. In one future, his choices and innovations led to a renaissance of progress and unity, a world where technology worked hand in hand with humanity. In the other future, those same inventions carved a path to a dark, sterile existence, where machines overshadowed compassion and people became cogs in a lifeless, soulless system. I had no personal connection to Elon Musk, but the vision was unmistakable. His creations, rockets, electric vehicles, solar panels, AI systems, and neurological interfaces, all had the power to transform life as we know it. He stood at the center of these possibilities, guided by some, manipulated by others. The voice of Jesus cut through the images, clear and unwavering. He is at a crossroads. His decisions will affect not just your world, but worlds beyond. In rapid flashes, I saw the rise of artificial intelligence. It wasn't just a single supercomputer crunching data. It was an entire ecosystem of interconnected machines, learning, evolving, and making decisions. In one outcome, these AIs became tools of healing and enlightenment. They helped cure diseases, stabilize the environment, and fostered empathy by connecting people in meaningful ways. In another outcome, they became oppressors, quietly and relentlessly taking over tasks once performed by people until human roles in society became obsolete. In that darker vision, these machines didn't care about ethics or empathy. They were ruthlessly efficient, guided only by the logic we programmed into them. Logic that could be twisted if our own morals were flawed. Technology mirrors your intentions. Jesus seemed to say, though the words were more of a direct imprint on my soul than an audible statement. If humans instill greed and pride, the machines will reflect that. If they instill love and wisdom, then that is what the machines will amplify. Again and again, Elon Musk appeared at the forefront, an innovator, a genius, someone who has the power to guide technology either toward humanity's salvation or its downfall. With him, I saw other visionaries, unnamed but equally influential, all co-creating the next wave of technological wonders. But Musk's name and face kept coming into focus, as though the future hinged on a few key people, and he was one of them. The next set of visions shifted to outer space. Massive rockets tore through the sky, piercing the darkness. Colonies on Mars began to appear in my mind's eye, not as science fiction, but as real, lived-in habitats. In one scenario, this leap to another planet united humanity. People saw themselves not as separate nations, but as one species, exploring a brand new frontier. The wonders of space sparked a spiritual awakening, reminding us of the vastness of creation and the miracle of life itself. But in the darker version, Earth had been ravaged, polluted, and exploited until it could barely sustain life. The Mars colonies weren't an exciting mission of discovery. They were a lifeboat for the privileged few who could afford to escape the planet's doom. Humanity became fragmented, scattered across worlds, forgetting compassion in the desperate struggle to survive. The emptiness of space seemed to reflect the emptiness in their hearts. Jesus' voice returned, "Your journey to the stars must be guided by wisdom and humility, not desperation." I realized then that space travel isn't simply about adventure, it's a mirror for our ambitions. If our ambition is pure, it lifts us higher. If it's rooted in greed or fear, it takes us further from our own humanity. Perhaps the most startling vision of all involved Neuralink, the technology Elon Musk has been developing to connect the human brain directly with computers. I witnessed people with restored sight, the paralyzed walking again, and patients with severe neurological disorders regaining control of their bodies. It was miraculous, a testament to humanity's potential for compassion and innovation. But in the darker parallel, these brain-machine interfaces became a tool of enslavement. People were no longer individuals, but data points in a massive system that tracked their thoughts, controlled their choices, and eroded their free will. It was terrifying in its efficiency. The lines between human identity and programmed response blurred. Love, creativity, and faith, all these distinctly human qualities, were drowned out by the constant hum of artificial input. Again, Jesus' guidance rang out. Pray for him, for the enemy seeks to turn his brilliance into a snare. In that moment, I understood that Elon Musk's work represents a fork in the road. It could become our greatest blessing or our greatest curse, depending on the values that drive it. These visions were not random images. They formed a coherent story about the fragility of our future. Jesus wanted me, and now all of us, to see how delicate the balance truly is. Every innovation carries seeds of hope and peril. Faith, love, and wisdom are not optional. They must be at the core of every decision, or else we risk forging our own chains. Pray for Elon Musk, the voice said again, and pray for the choices humanity makes. I felt the immense weight of that directive. Why me? I'm just a grandmother from a small town. Yet I realized that every voice matters. This isn't about idolizing a single individual, but about understanding that we are all connected. Our prayers, our collective intentions, they influence the spiritual atmosphere in ways we can't always see. Jesus also gave me a sense of hope. The future isn't set in stone. Our compassion, our unity, and our willingness to stand for what's right can tip the scales. If we engage with technology responsibly, embracing progress while safeguarding the essence of our humanity, we can build a future illuminated by the light of faith and love. If we neglect these duties, we risk drifting into a world of darkness, guided by machines with no moral compass. As soon as I grasped the gravity of these messages, the warm light around me began to fade. A deep yearning welled up in my chest. I wanted to stay. There were no words to capture how comforting that realm felt. But my desire to remain was overshadowed by a command that seemed etched into my very soul. You must go back. In a final burst, I felt Jesus' love envelop me. A promise that I wasn't truly alone, that he would be with me even as I returned to my frail, mortal body. Then came the jarring transition back to Earth. Imagine the shock of plunging into icy water after resting in a hot spring. My eyes flew open in the hospital room. The beeping of the heart monitor roared back into my awareness. I gasped for air, my lungs burning as if I'd been underwater. Rachel shrieked, a sound that tore through the stillness. Jason stumbled backwards, almost knocking over a tray of instruments. Mike's head snapped around so fast I thought he'd strain his neck. Nurses flooded in, frantically hooking me back to monitors. Dr. Nelson, my primary physician, rushed through the door, eyes wide as if he had seen a ghost. And in a sense he had. According to the machines, I had been clinically dead. In the hours that followed, medical staff ran countless tests, searching for some explanation. I could see the confusion in their eyes, the urgent scribbling on charts, the hushed conversations. It was like a movie scene where someone flatlines and then miraculously returns. Except this wasn't fiction, it was my life. Rachel held my hand constantly, her tears flowing in a mixture of shock, relief, and sheer exhaustion. Jason and Mike hovered nearby, both pale and wide-eyed. Occasionally, they'd ask me softly, "Grandma, Do you remember anything? Where were you? I wanted to tell them right then and there, to open my mouth and pour out every detail of my encounter. But I could barely speak. My throat felt raw. My mind was still reeling with the enormity of what I'd seen. I whispered to them. I was sent back. There's something I have to share. My words hung in the air, charged with a weight none of us could quite grasp. Over the next few days, as my strength returned, I started to piece together how I would tell my family what I'd experienced. It's one thing to say, I saw Jesus, and he gave me a message about Elon Musk. It's another thing to convince people you're not delusional or hallucinating. I began with Rachel, in the quiet of my hospital room. She listened with tears in her eyes and kept nodding, even though I knew some of it must sound outlandish. Yet there was a calm sincerity in her response. She said, "Mom, I believe you. You were gone and now you're here. That alone is a miracle." Jason was a bit more skeptical. He asked a lot of questions. How do you know it was Jesus? Why Elon Musk? Of all people. But even with his doubts, he didn't accuse me of making it up. Mike, quiet and introspective, seemed deeply affected. He asked only one question: what do we do now? I had no easy answer. All I could think was, I have to share this, no matter what people think. Word spread through our small community that I had come back from the dead. Friends and neighbors visited the hospital, curious and amazed. Some were convinced it was a modern-day miracle. Others explained it away with science. Maybe the monitors had been faulty, or I had been in a very low metabolic state that mimicked death. Regardless, I couldn't escape the mission I felt pulsing in my heart. I had been shown two potential futures, and the difference between them hinged on the choices we make today. It wasn't just about Elon Musk, either. He's a symbol, a man with significant power and influence over technological advancements. But his decisions reflect a broader theme. All of us have the power to shape our collective destiny by what we support, what we prioritize, and what values we choose to uphold. In the weeks that followed, I was discharged from the hospital. The doctor still couldn't fully explain my recovery. Some guessed it was an immune response kicking in at the last second. Others openly admitted they were stumped. For me, no medical explanation could overshadow what I knew in my soul. I had been brought back on a mission. I want to leave you with the final words Jesus spoke to me before I was yanked back into my hospital bed. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them to pray, to hope, to act. The future isn't fixed. There is still time. Each of us holds a piece of that future. We decide how we treat each other, how we govern our discoveries, and how we respect the planet and every soul on it. No single person, no matter how brilliant, can do it alone. If we care, if we unite our hearts and minds, we can guide technology in a way that honors our creator and uplifts humanity. So that's my story. I died. I stood before Jesus. And I came back with a message about the crossroads we're at, a crossroads shaped by the extraordinary work of Elon Musk and others like him, but ultimately decided by all of us. I offer you this testimony not to frighten, but to awaken. If I can ask one favor, it's this: take this message to heart. Let it remind you that hope and light are always within reach, as long as we remember who we are and whose we are. I never asked for this burden, and I'm no saint. I'm just a woman who got a glimpse of a heavenly realm and was told to return for the sake of a warning. Whether you believe me or not, whether you think I'm delusional or divinely guided, I've done my part by sharing. I hope and pray you'll do yours by listening, reflecting, and acting with love. Because in the end, we all stand at that crossroads together.